What's up guys, hope you're having a good day. In this video we are going to be going through our profit and loss from the whole month of August. We're going to be taking a look at every single kind of bet that we placed throughout the month of August to take a look at our performance. We're going to see what we did well, what we didn't do so well, and if there's anything we can learn from our performance in August to hopefully help us do better in September. So let's kick things off by taking a look at how we performed on our strongest category of bet, the bet that is a huge cash cow for us and the type of bet that we do extremely well at, which is of course live betting. And as you can see, this live in-play betting profitability chart is very profitable, nice steady consistent uptrend, and we make a profit pretty much every month in live betting. We're extremely good at it and we consistently do very well at it. So throughout the month of August there were 3 events in the UFC and we made a profit on every single one of them, as you can see here. So we made a 1.22 unit profit on the Gann versus Lewis card. Then we made 0.62 units of profit on the Cannonier versus Gastelum card. And then finally, most recently, 2.5 units of profit on the Barboza versus Chikadze card, which gave us an overall profit of approximately 4.34 units in live betting, which is a really solid return. Obviously, you know, the profit and loss when it comes to live betting is always going to be approximate. This is never going to be an exact figure because the odds differ dramatically in live in-play betting from website to website. Sometimes the odds are suspended, sometimes they're not. You know, which country you live in can depend on, you know, how many bets you can get in on and what odds you can get in on, because betting odds and liquidity differ dramatically from, you know, website to website, country to country. But generally speaking, you know, the profits that you see, you know, in this database are a pretty good guide as to what people have made. Sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. But the main thing is, you know, no matter what the profit was, whatever the end figure was, the vast majority of the time we are making profits in live betting. And you can see this with this amazing winning run that we've put together. So we've now made a profit on the last 8 consecutive UFC events, and hopefully we can make it 10 in a row. If we can just bank a profit on the next 2 events, that'll be a really nice 10 event winning streak. Obviously our win rate is very high on live betting. We make a lot of money in live betting, and you know, I think our longest winning run, the most consecutive winning events we've ever managed to put together in live betting, is like 24 events. So, you know, every winning run has to start somewhere, and I'm very happy to go 8 in a row on this current run. So live betting, another very solid month to keep this profitability chart looking absolutely phenomenal, and I'm sure we're going to do very well in live in-play betting again in September. So now let's take a look at how we performed on loose bets. So loose bets are your regular kind of pre-fight bet where we have identified in our fight research fighters to bet on that have clear and obvious advantages over their opponent. Or we've been able to identify really good value underdogs who may not have the best chance of beating their opponent, but they do present us with a really good risk to reward ratio when you look at the payoff and the profit we're going to get from the odds if they do win. You know, these kind of underdogs are usually guys that, like I say, may not have the best chance of winning, but they have a reasonably good chance of winning. And the odds, you know, the payoff that we're going to get if they do win, you know, make it worth taking a gamble on them. So as you can see, we perform really well on loose bets. This is a great looking profitability chart. Nice, steady, consistent uptrend. And again, as you can see, most months we do make a profit in loose bets. But unfortunately, in August, we didn't. You can see this little dip here. We did make a very small loss in August, which is super disappointing. I hate to lose because with the amount of time we put into fight research, it is demoralizing when you make a loss because, you know, we put the time in. You know, we 9 times out of 10 are getting our money on the stronger side, the right side to be on. And when you don't end up getting rewarded for that, it is a little bit frustrating. So if we take a look at what the actual profit and loss was, we put 43.64 in here and take away 42.29. You can see that our overall loss for the month of August was 1.35 units. So not too bad, pretty close to break even, but a disappointing result all the same. And, you know, what's even more disappointing is this was our first losing month since April. You can see that we've been on a nice, steady, consistent uptrend ever since. So to take a loss in August, very annoying. Now, you know, July was pretty difficult to bet on the UFC. August was also a difficult month, and I think September is going to be pretty tricky as well. Because at the moment, I just really feel like the UFC are scraping the barrel with their matchmaking. I know that that's a horrible thing to say, but it feels like in terms of the quality of matchup that the UFC is putting on, they're kind of running out of steam. And for me, they're just, at the moment, throwing bodies into the octagon to fill these events up. You know, usually under normal circumstances, on these fight night cards or pay-per-views, you'd have 3, 4, 5 fights on every main card that would consist of, you know, really meaningful, really high-level matchups between two ranked fighters that, you know, we can really get our teeth into and research and dig up strong positions for. But where the UFC have been doing week after week after week after week of consistent events for so long, I just feel like they're running out of bodies to, you know, put together in the octagon and make really interesting, meaningful matchups. So many of the events we're getting at the moment are full of short notice fighters or guys fresh off the Contender Series, or, you know, guys who are inexperienced, you know, debutants, guys with bad fight IQ who are inconsistent because they're not that experienced, and it just makes it a lot more difficult when you're dealing with more fights like this, or dealing with fighters in more fights like this. It just makes it that much harder to dig up strong positions for us to put our money. You know, we are still doing reasonably well, but it has become a little bit more difficult over the last few months. I think COVID is really starting to take its toll on the UFC's matchmakers, because, you know, Australia and New Zealand are locked down. You know, international travel restrictions makes it difficult for people living in some parts of Europe to travel over to the United States. And obviously, COVID is getting a little bit crazy in some parts of the US as well. On these fight night cards at the moment, it feels like every single event has at least 10 fight cancellations. So many, you know, fights get rescheduled or, you know, moved around, new people brought in, late notice replacements. It's just chaos. And I'm hoping that even if COVID doesn't, you know, end anytime soon, even if the world doesn't go back to normal anytime soon, hoping that when the UFC do go back to Fight Island in October, we start to get a higher quality of matchup, because it does feel like they're kind of scraping the barrel lately on these events, which does make it harder to make a profit. Like, look at the next event we've got coming up. The main event is Ryan Spann against Anthony Smith. It's kind of like, ugh. You know, a couple of years back, you never would have seen two guys like that in the position they're in their careers headlining a fight night card. It's just not great at the moment, which is making it a tough environment for betting. But we'll keep grinding, keep digging for those strong positions, and we will keep grinding out profits. You know, at the end of the day, if you consistently put your money in strong positions over a long period of time, it's inevitable you're going to make money, and that's what we're going to continue to do. So obviously in the weekly performance review videos, we've spoken about each of these bets that won and lost in more detail, but you know, we'll just gloss over them quickly, you know, in this kind of top level overview of how we did in August. But if you do want my thoughts and opinions on any of these winning or losing bets in more detail, go to the YouTube channel, go onto my website, go back through the previous performance review videos that I put out every week to kind of get my thoughts on each of these winning and losing bets. So I'll just kind of gloss through this as quick as I can. So we kicked the month off with a winning bet on Johnny Munoz, which was very nice easy winner for us. We then had a winner on Tisha Torres, another nice easy win for us. We then took a loss on Derek Lewis. We had a high risk gamble on Lewis, a good example of one of those bets where, you know, nobody would have favoured Lewis over Gann. You know, he certainly didn't have the best chance of beating Gann in terms of, you know, Gann was definitely the more likely guy to win. But I felt with Lewis being a really big underdog, it was worth taking a little bit of a gamble on him. In this instance, that gamble didn't pay off though. And then we had a bet on Victoria Leonardo to beat Melissa Gatto, which was a bet that got absolutely crushed, didn't even come close to winning. And this was a very, very unlucky loss. I do kind of want to vent a little bit and get this one off my chest, but I do feel we got really unlucky here. When you look at how the fight went, you know, Leonardo got completely dominated, completely destroyed, and Melissa Gatto looked absolutely phenomenal, and you're probably left wondering why the hell would this idiot ever bet Victoria Leonardo. It doesn't make any sense. She didn't stand a chance against Melissa Gatto. She got destroyed. But we got unlucky here because the version of Melissa Gatto that we got looked absolutely nothing like the Melissa Gatto that we've seen in the past. So before Melissa Gatto even came into the UFC, she was suspended by USADA for a year for taking banned substances. And for me, like, I'll talk about the USADA thing in 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 a moment, but for me, USADA really needs to take a closer look at this girl because there's something very suspicious going on. If we take a look at this fight, Melissa Gatto is in the black and white sportswear here. Now, if we take a look at Melissa Gatto's record, she obviously destroyed Victoria Leonardo. Then, she had a quick first round finish back in 2018 against Cara Rosa. But before that, she fought Sidi Rocha. This was the last time that we got a really good look at Melissa Gatto. And now I know that she's a young fighter. She's only 25 years old. She is going to be improving from fight to fight. But when I bet Victoria Leonardo in that even money odds range, which these odds carry an implied probability of about 50-50%, 50-50, right? I couldn't believe how good of a deal we were getting on Victoria Leonardo when you look at how bad Melissa Gatto had looked in the past. You look at Melissa Gatto and how she looked against Sidi Rocha, which was only a couple fights ago. Here's the fight here. Here she is in the red gloves. She looks absolutely terrible, and she looks nothing like she did against Victoria Leonardo. Against Leonardo, she was big, strong, physically imposing, great Muay Thai, great boxing defense, amazing takedown defense. Really, really strong and skilled on the ground. And here you can see she looks sloppy, flat-footed, low level, physically weak. She just doesn't look good here at all. Doesn't look anything like she did in her debut against Victoria Leonardo. Gatto absolutely overpowered and dominated Leonardo on the ground. And if you go back and watch this fight against Sidi Rocha, that's just not the version of Gatto, or not a version of Gatto that we've ever seen in the past. You can see here, Sidi Rocha shoots in for a takedown in a moment. We'll just skip ahead a little bit. Shoots a takedown any second now. This shoots a takedown here. I mean, look at how sloppy Gatto looks. Nothing like she did against Leonardo. And you can see just sloppy leg kicks. No pop in her shots. No power in her hands. Terrible takedown defense here. And just look at how easily, her opponent Sidi Rocha is able to hold her down. So, for me, Melissa Gatto looked absolutely amazing in her debut. She looked really, really good in her debut. Strong, physically imposing, fast, technical, great takedown defense, great Muay Thai, really solid grappling, but physically weak, absolutely hopeless on her back, and a very low-level fighter in her past fights. So I made the decision to bet on Leonardo based on how bad Melissa Gatto looked here. And I believe if this version of Melissa Gatto would have shown up, the Victoria Leonardo bet would have been an easy winner. But I do think USADA need to take a closer look at this girl. There's no smoke without fire, and she's already been suspended by USADA for a year. This is how Melissa Gatto used to look. Small, feminine. She looks like, she doesn't look like someone that would be using performance-enhancing drugs. Here's another picture of her. Slight, feminine, not too muscular. Here's another picture. Slight, feminine, not too big, not too muscular. And then if you look at her in her UFC debut, this looks like a completely different person. Completely different person. Look at these muscles. Look at the veins pop in her arms. This looks like a completely different fighter. She looks like Bane. And so, even though we took a bad loss on Victoria Leonardo where she got absolutely dominated, there's no way that we could have known she was going to show up and look like this. I felt it was a good gamble on Leonardo, when you look at how bad Melissa Gatto had looked in her past fights. But USADA should be taking a look at this girl because, that is quite a transformation. That is quite a transformation. So something very fishy is going on there. That is all I'll say. So we did take a loss on Gatto, but kind of hard to get away from taking her in that even money odds range when you look at how bad Gatto had looked in the past. She didn't look bad in her debut though. She looked amazing. We then took a gamble on Clay Guida. Again, pretty good bet. Took him as a decent sized underdog, and the fight ended by split decision. So split decision. Those kind of fights that go to a split decision, usually pretty close, usually could go either way. So if ever you get yourself on the side of a moderate underdog in a fight that ends in a split decision, usually you're on the wrong side. And I think if Guida would have picked the pace up a little bit and, just worked a little bit harder in the third round, I think he would have nicked that fight. I think Guida kind of took the third round off because I think he felt he was up 2 rounds. He wobbled Madsen very briefly in round 1, wobbled him again in round 2, and I think he felt that was enough for him to nick the first 2 rounds. 2 of the 3 judges disagreed, but anyway, quite happy with the Guida bet. Decent 1 unit gamble. We then had a decent winner on Austin Lingo. Nice big winner, 2 units at underdog odds. Very, very nice. We also had a winner on Brahimaj, which is absolutely great, to take us into the final event of the month, Barboza Chikadze, where it all then went wrong and unravelled. We lost a 2-fight parlay accumulator, and JJ Aldrich and Makhmut Muradov still absolutely blown away. The Muradov lost. I can't fucking believe he got beat by Gerald Meerschaert. For me, Makhmut Muradov was one of the most technically skilled, exciting, up-and-coming fighters in the middleweight division. In his past fights, he's moved very well. He's, very technical, very well-rounded, and I was just very disappointed by his performance. For me, in this fight, despite the fact that Muradov's got over 20 pro fights, he showed a massive lack of experience. There's that quote from Chael Sonnen where, if you try to win it, Chael Sonnen has always said, if you try and win a fight by knockout, you often end up losing a decision, and Muradov didn't even get to a position where he could lose a decision. He obviously got finished in round 2, but the same principle applies. What that quote means is that when you start to headhunt and try to knock your opponent out, you risk adrenaline dumping, gassing yourself out, or opening yourself up and exposing yourself to your opponent knocking you out or putting you in a bad position. It's exactly what happened here. Muradov dropped Meerschaert 3 or 4 times in round 1, looked very comfortable. It was clear that skill for skill from a technical point of view, Meerschaert had nothing for Muradov, and as soon as Muradov dropped Meerschaert a couple times, he really fell in love with a knockout, and he started headhunting and fishing for that knockout. He started overcommitting to shots, winging big wide hooks, really loading up and throwing a lot of energy into each of his power shots, and this resulted in him adrenaline dumping, burning himself out, and getting finished in round 2. Muradov is usually very light on his feet, moves very well, very technical, likes to chip away at his opponents from behind the jab with the leg kicks. There was none of that. He fought like an absolute jackass and cost us money, which was very frustrating because that fight should have been an absolute fucking cakewalk for him, and he just absolutely imploded and demonstrated really bad fight IQ, which is a shame because the middleweight division is very light on talent, and they need really exciting, skilled fighters like Muradov to make that division interesting. Losing that fight is a huge blow for everyone. It's a huge blow to Muradov. It's another big blow to the middleweight division. It's obviously a blow to us because we lost money. And then also we lost a bet on Edson Barboza versus Giga Chikadze. Now what I will say is Chikadze looked one hell of a lot better than I thought he would. He really rose to the occasion and performed excellently. I think it was by far the best that Chikadze has ever looked. And I think that he should utilise this strategy a lot more. Something different that Chikadze did in his fight against Barboza was that he chose the counter-strike instead of lead. Chikadze usually leads, but when Chikadze leads, I don't feel his boxing's great. I feel he's a little bit sloppy, a little bit reckless. He's not particularly accurate with his boxing. But when he was, fighting on the outside and looking to just counter Barboza and pick Barboza off as he came forward, Chikadze looked absolutely phenomenal to me. Thought he looked brilliant against Barboza. Thought he did absolutely excellently well. And he is much more technical, much more skilled when choosing to counter as opposed to lead in the dance. And, Barboza's no joke. Very high-level kickboxer. And Chikadze picked him apart for the vast majority of those first 2 rounds. I'm not going to say we got unlucky with this loser because Chikadze looked absolutely brilliant. But I do think had that fight gone a little bit longer, Chikadze would have started to struggle. Just before Barboza got knocked out, there was a bit of a momentum swing in Barboza's favour where towards the end of the second round, Barboza really started to pick the pace up, land more volume on Chikadze, started to do really well. That's really significant because, if you go back and watch Chikadze's past fights, we know that he usually slows down about midway through the second round. And I think had Barboza, just taken him into deep into the third round, into that fourth or fifth minute of round 3, the door was open for Barboza to kind of backdoor a decision there and nick the third, fourth, and fifth rounds. Wasn't given an opportunity to. Chikadze did amazing by landing the kill shot and knocking him out. Barboza, is a very difficult opponent, and Chikadze looked absolutely phenomenal against him. But it is a shame that just as that momentum swing was starting to creep in and Barboza was starting to take over, Chikadze landed the kill shot. I'm not going to say it would have made any difference. I'm not going to say, Barboza was definitely on his way to victory. Chikadze was doing great, but I think the fight would have gone more competitive and got quite interesting had Barboza just dragged Chikadze a little bit deeper into the fight, where we know Chikadze starts to become tired, sloppier, and less effective. So yeah, overall loss 1.35 units in the old loose bets, and hopefully we can bounce back with a profit in September. So now let's take a look at the even money bets and see how they did. So again, even money bets are a category of bet we performed very well on. We didn't perform well on them in August, which has got my blood boiling. I'm not happy about it. So even money bets are those bets where where I basically pick a winner in every single fight, where the odds on both guys are in an even money odds range, which is 1.65 minus 154 up to 2.30 plus 130. And I have to put a bet in for every single fight in that even money odds range, with the theory being that no matter what mathematical edge the bookies may have, our knowledge of the sport, our fight research, and our ability to gamble effectively will outperform the bookies on bets in this odds range. And as you can see, over a decent sample size of 250 bets, and over the last 18 months, we have outperformed the bookies big time on these bets, and we will continue to outperform them in the future, even if we took a very small loss on these even money bets in August. So if we take a look at this, we can see that 25.98 take away 25.73 gives us a virtually break-even month. We lost 0.25 units of profit, so virtually break-even. We'll just quickly skim through all of the bets that we had in the month of August. There were a lot of them. We had Vince Morales to beat Draco Rodriguez. That was a winner. We then took Jose Aldo to beat Pedro Munoz. That was a winner. We had Vicente Luque to beat Michael Chiesa. That was a winner. Tisha Torres to beat Angela Hill. That was a winner. And what a start to the month, man. At this point, I'm thinking, where did it all go wrong? We then lost money by taking Kenny to beat Yadong Song, Kovalkiewicz to beat Jessica Penne, Victoria Leonardo to beat Melissa Gatto, which we've also already spoken about, and Trevin Jones to beat Kak Ramanov. That's not the easiest name to pronounce. Let's take a look at the others. We then lost money on Kelvin Gastelum to beat Cannonier, Roosevelt Roberts to beat Ignacio Bahamondes, Austin Hubbard to beat Vince Pichel. Then came back with some wins on Austin Lingo to beat Saldana, Brahamaj to beat Palatnikov, Wellington Turman to beat Sam Alvey. We took a loss on B. Malecki over Josiane Nunes. We won money on Pat Sabatini to beat Jamal Emmers, lost money on Edson Barboza to beat Giga Chikadze, and had a nice cheeky little winner on Daniel Rodriguez to beat Kevin Lee at underdog odds. So virtually a break-even month. Very disappointing, but we make profit most of the time. Most of our months are winning months on even money bets, and hopefully we can get things back on track by having a profitable September. Now let's take a look at tight bets. I don't think we had any tight bets for the month of... No, we didn't have any for the month of August. So let's take a look at props. So it was a horrible month for prop bets. I personally, I need to say this in every single video that I ever make where I talk about props, but prop bets are the only category of bet on my website where you will find a disclaimer like this. I really dislike prop bets. I don't bet them myself. I don't think you should bet props, and these bets are just a bet that I dislike, to be perfectly honest with you. They come with a lot of variance, they come with a low win rate, and it's very hard to make money on prop bets long term because they will slow down your compounded growth. My strategy for prop bets is to kind of use a spread betting technique, where if we think about the game of roulette, if you put all your money down on one number on the roulette table, when the wheel spins, if the ball lands on any other number, you lose all your money, right? Whereas if you spread your money out across various different numbers, when you spin the wheel, you've got more chance of winning because there are more numbers that the ball could land on, which would give you a profit. It's kind of the approach that I take to props. I try and place lots of high risk, high reward bets that are going to lose a huge percentage of the time, but bets that, have a pretty good risk to reward ratio, and kind of taking that shotgun approach to betting, that spread betting approach. So the goal of props is to hopefully win 2 or 3 bets per 2 or 3 bets per event to hopefully put us in profit. But as you can see, this strategy does lead to extreme variance and extreme swings. So we are profitable on them, but I just think that with this amount of variance and with these kind of swings, you're probably better off just not bothering with them. That's my personal opinion, but I know many of you like to place small bets on every single fight on a UFC card to make watching UFC events more interesting. So I do know props serve a purpose. We take gambling very seriously. We take betting on MMA seriously. But it is important to remember that gambling is a form of entertainment for many people, and I think that is that's the area where props do come in and become useful. So obviously, because of the quantity of props that we place, on each card, there's a huge amount of props to talk about. I'm not going to go into all of them because this will make the video very long, but it was a very bad month on props for us. So if we do the calculation and go 32.08, take away 21.58, we made an overall loss of 10.5 units in the month of August. Very bad month for props. Hopefully we can bounce back in September. You never know with props. They come with a lot of risk, a lot of variance. They're all over the place. Now let's take a look at what haven't we covered. Let's take a look at the lab bets. So we will kick things off in the lab by taking a look at over-unders. So over-unders are one of our best performing categories of bet. You can see that virtually every month we make a profit on over-unders. Nice, steady, consistent uptrend. And thankfully, August was another profitable month for us. Not that much of a profitable month, only a small profit, but profit is profit and we will take it. So if we take a look at this, 28.51, take away 27.96, we can see that we made an overall profit of around break even, 0.55 units of profit on over-unders, but there weren't many over-unders that I liked in the month of August. We only had 3 over-under bets this month. We took the under 2.5 rounds in Simmons versus Johnny Munoz. That was an easy winner. Then we had the fight doesn't go the distance bet on the Michael Chiesa Vicente Luque fight. That was an easy winner. And then we took a loss on fight doesn't go to a decision in the Guido Canetti versus Mana Martinez fight, which was very disappointing. I feel like 2 things contributed to this loss. The first thing that contributed to it was Guido Canetti fighting much safer than usual. Usually Canetti has one of these kill or be killed styles that kind of comes out and just looks to kill his opponent in round 1, and then he usually fades in the second and third round. And Mana Martinez, I feel, let Canetti off the hook a lot. There were several times in this fight where Martinez had Canetti hurt pretty bad and trapped up against the cage, but instead of going for the kill, kind of let him off the hook, went into the clinch, and gave Canetti time to recover. So, made a profit, nothing major, nothing amazing, but it was enough to keep this nice, steady, consistent uptrend going. Now let's take a look at a brand new category of bet that we added recently. This was Matern's idea. Matern is a great guy who's been in the community for a long time, helps me out with a lot of stuff. And since we performed so well on the even money bets, Matern few months ago was like, why don't we see if we can become profitable betting over-unders in the even money odds range? So I absolutely loved that idea, and this experiment is a couple months deep now, and overall we are down 2.5 units on these even money over-unders after 2 months, which is virtually break even, right? We haven't had long enough to see whether this experiment is going to perform well or not yet. Still very early days. You'll probably also notice that this profitability chart is broken, so we can see that if you look at the other profitability charts, the months are all in order. You got November, December, January, February, March. You get the idea. You'll probably see here that the events are the months are in the wrong order. You've got August and then it goes to July. This is just because the software has a bug in it, or the software I use to generate these profitability charts has a bug in it where it can't put months in the correct chronological sequence until there's like 5 or 6 lines or 5 or 6 rows of data in the database. So what that basically means is for the first 5 or 6 months of this experiment, the months are going to be jumbled up and all in kinds of different orders. Like it might go August, July, then it might go to, you know, September. It'll just be jumbled up. So for the first 5 or 6 months of this experiment, this profitability chart's going to be broken. So just bear with me there until we're 6 months deep. But if we just have a quick skim through, again, we've got tons of these even money over unders. So I'm not going to, you know, go through them in too much detail. But yeah, mixed bag, you know, doing all right. You know, currently floating around break even, and hopefully we can break out and start to rack up some decent profits on that category of bet. So the only other final bet that we've got to discuss is, in fact, apart from the brand new experiment, these even money over unders, the main event picks are the only category of bet on the website that I provide which are at a loss. And you can see just the ugliest profitability chart ever, the category of bet that I've just performed absolutely terrible on. You can see at the moment we're down 16.88 units on main event picks. And main event picks are basically, they're very similar to the even money bets, where I am forced, gun to my head, to pick a winner in every main event fight. And yeah, I just don't perform well on main events. I don't know if this is because, you know, main event fights have the highest liquidity, the most eyeballs on them. Therefore, in terms of it being an efficient betting market, you know, maybe it's very hard to be profitable on main event picks because it is the most efficient, you know, category of bet when it comes to betting on MMA. You know, bookies are probably very, very sharp at capping fights, you know, or main event fights, and you know, perhaps don't get as many inaccuracies in the odds and any as many advantages to take advantage of discrepancies in the odds as you do on other fights, because so many eyeballs are on main event fights that, you know, the odds are probably roughly where they should be the vast majority of the time, which will make it be a lot more difficult to be profitable on this type of bet. But yeah, performed absolutely terribly. Went 0-3 in the month of August. We went with Lewis, Gaslam and Barboza. Absolutely shocking stuff, absolutely terrible. Another dreadful month for main event picks. But needless to say, you know, I always want to make the point, and I always say this, but I don't want to be anyone's guru. I don't ever want to tell you what bets to place. I never want to tell you what to do. I much prefer you to use me as a resource to make your own decisions, right? I just want my website, my fight research, my YouTube channel to be a resource that you can use to help you make your own decisions and help you make money betting on MMA. Don't want to tell anyone what to do. So the reason why I have got so many categories of bet on the website accompanied by all these profitability charts is so that you can interpret this data yourself to decide how you want to bet. So, you know, if I was a member of my website and, you know, I was looking to use me as a resource to, you know, make bets and make a profit on MMA, whenever I recommend an over-under bet, I would take that bet very, very seriously, because this profitability chart looks brilliant, right? It's all about how data is interpreted. If you look at a chart like this, if it's a stock, if it's a cryptocurrency, you can see that this is a very strong performing thing that you're looking at. So you should take over unders very seriously. If you look, you know, if you see something that looks like this, you probably don't want to tail that, right? You probably don't want to be tailing my main event picks, because they're not going to perform very well. So, you know, even though we've got this experiment here, it is an experimental category of bet, and because it hasn't produced a profit over a decent amount of time, I wouldn't recommend that you tail these bets. But I'm going to keep it going because I do the research on the fights anyway. Who knows? Maybe this is just a bit of variance and maybe I can turn it around. But main event picks are struggle city. So thank you for watching. I really appreciate you watching. And like I say, August, kind of a bit of a dead month, floated around break even on pretty much everything apart from live betting, but hopefully we can bounce back and have a solid September. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button if you appreciate the work I do, and subscribe if you haven't already. Take care, guys. Love you all, and I will see you very, very soon for another video. Nice one, guys. Bye.